You're listening to Words vs. Words with Friends podcast, a fun interactive podcast where we challenge your mind and perspective using everyday words and phrases. You haven't heard a podcast like this before. It's more than a discussion, it's a debate. Now let's join hosts Joeleen Santiago and Shemeka Montgomery for an all-new episode.
Hi, welcome to Words vs. Words with Friends podcast. This is a fun, interactive podcast where we challenge your mind and perspective using everyday words and phrases. Thank you so much for tuning in today for another episode, Emotions versus Feelings. I'm your host, Joeleen Santiago, and I have my co-host here, Shemeka Montgomery.
Hey, y'all. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight to Words vs. Words with Friends podcast. We hope you guys had an amazing week this week. And like Joe said, we have an awesome episode, Emotions versus Feelings. Words vs. Words with Friends is a podcast created to bring back the real art of conversation. Joe and I are going to help you think outside the box and also create dialogue. And tonight we have a very special guest. And Joe, who is our guest for tonight?
Our special guest is the senior pastor of Life Changers Church in the great city of Austin, Texas. He and his wife truly believe that change starts within ourselves, and they live that motto. They have touched the hearts of hundreds with the word of God. He is also the host of the Next 15 podcast show. It is an honor and pleasure to welcome Pastor Christopher McAllister. Welcome, Pastor. We are so happy to have you on Words vs. Words with Friends podcast.
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's so good to be back in the saddle, everybody. Yeah, such an honor to be on the podcast with you guys. I know it's going to be a great podcast on tonight, guys.
Yes, we are so happy to have you, Pastor. Thank you so much for accepting our invitation. You Absolutely. Are an OG when it comes to podcasting, and we're excited to have you. So tonight we have emotions versus feelings. And so for emotions, we have spontaneous mental reaction such as joy, sorrow, hate, and love. Emotions always involve mental activity and sometimes have physical effects on the body. An intense but short-lived experience. And then for feelings, we have a particular sensation or an emotional perception or attitude, a physical sensation that you experience. And so right now, I want to take the time to invite you guys. Thank you for joining us again. We ask that you would jump in the chat, give us some feedback. If you have any questions for Pastor Chris, put those in the chat as well. So Pastor Chris, what we're going to do is we're going to have some questions tonight. We're going to have some scenarios. And so awesome. For our very first one, okay? So we have for our first question. Let's go. So we have, what do you think most people make their decisions based on, emotions or feelings? And let me give you the scenario to that. Okay, so for scenario one, we have job evaluation. Okay, so it's time for your yearly evaluation and your supervisor critiques your job performance. You disagree and make an immediate decision to quit your job. Is this using your emotions or are you using your feelings?
Okay. All right. So I'm going to jump right in. I'm going to tell you with that particular one, you are talking feelings, right? Because the first word of the definition is spontaneous, right? So when you're dealing with your feelings, you don't take any time to think anything through. You don't take any time to look at what the complications or what the reaction will be after the decision is going to be made. So most people in most scenarios deal out of their feelings in regards to their emotions because we're so reactionary as people, right? And so I'm quick to tell you how I feel and why I feel the way I feel instead of dealing with the emotion, which is the root cause of why I should act, not when I will act, right? So yeah, I'm going to go that they're dealing in their feelings.
Okay, so Joe, what are your thoughts?
Okay, so I see it a little bit different. I see it as people are responding out of their emotions. I will say that they feel a particular way, but based on those feelings, they react on their emotions.
Okay.
So for me, I have to go with Pastor Chris. So for me,
Of
it's the
course you would.
feelings as well. Because my
Yeah.
thing is that it is your first immediate reaction. You
Mm.
were upset that your supervisor gave you this evaluation because you thought you was killing it in the
Right.
game. You know what I'm saying? And then here they come telling you all of these things that you did wrong. So your
Right.
immediate first response was, guess what? I'm mad. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Like you out of there. So you just went off of your first initial reaction. So to
Yeah.
me, you were going off of your feelings.
Right.
Absolutely.
And let me go back into that also with you is when you're dealing with your feelings again, you don't give time for your emotions to set in, right? Because let's look at it this way. Let's go just a little bit deeper, shall we? So you make that decision off your feeling, but you're walking to your car, you get in your car, and the first thing you really think about is, what have I just done? Now the emotion is taking over, right? Is because you made the reaction off your feeling. Now the emotion is now starting to talk to you a little bit deeper. It says, okay, you made that decision, but now the emotion is saying, you're sad instead of mad, right? And so again, for me, again, my own personal opinion, like I said, I think that again, most of us, including me, we generally jump the gun when it comes to how we feel, and never let the emotion set in, because I think emotions are necessary. Feelings are too, but emotions are necessary because emotions will give you that guiding presence, right? Of understanding you at that moment, but most of us don't give it time to set in. So, yeah, I'm with you, Miss
Mm.
Shemeka.
Okay. Okay. So emotions. So would you agree that emotions are an outward demonstration of a person's feelings? Is
um,
that what you're saying or?
what I am saying is, the initial reaction to anything is generally the feeling, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Um, because for instance, if you bump yourself, if you accidentally cut yourself, the initial feeling is pain,
Mhm.
but the emotion is regret, because now I regret that I cut my finger, because I know I can no longer use that finger in the manner that I want to use it until it heals,
Mhm.
right?
Right.
I think that they are really very two different things.
Mhm.
Personally, me, they're opposite from one another. Feelings is immediate, emotions for me is over time.
Hmm.
Even though I know it says spontaneous in that, but emotions is
Hmm.
a time thing for me. Because once you get in tune with your emotions instead of your feelings, right? Like emotions, where it says joy, sorrow, hate, love, that takes time to set in. You don't know if you're
Mm.
really happy until you really understand what not being happy feels like, right? You don't know
Mm.
hatred until until you've been hated on, really.
That's
Mm.
And stuff of
good.
that manner, right? So I think emotions is more of in regards to how what time dictates how you
Mm.
react to situations.
I don't
And
think
I
that that's
agree with that. Go ahead, Joe.
go ahead,
Go ahead.
Shemeka. No, go ahead.
No, I was gonna say I agree
Mhm.
with that because, like you were saying, you quit your job, and then once you get to your vehicle, or maybe even further down the road, then you start to have regret, and then you start to regret, what in the world did I just do? You know what
Mm-hmm.
I mean? Like
Mm-hmm.
I reacted too quickly. I made a rash decision. You could have been there for years. You know what?
Mm.
They could have gave you that evaluation just to see how you were gonna react, because
Uh-huh.
they could have been preparing you for
Mm.
leadership to give
Mm.
you a better position. And then you done
Yeah.
up and got an attitude and quit. And now what? All of that work
Mhm.
was for nothing. You know what I mean? So you
Yeah.
can't you
Mhm.
can't react off of that. You gotta take time to sit back and just really process it. And
Right.
for me, that's something I'm having to learn how to do.
Mhm. And I think the emotion for me, I think you said it's over time, but for me it can be immediate. For example,
Okay.
you were talking about a person getting hurt, right? Well, yeah, they're going to feel the pain, but what are they going to do as a result of that pain, right? They're going to scream or cry. So that is the emotion. So sometimes those
Touche.
emotions are immediate. And then also too, talking about the job situation, like if somebody gets angry or they're hot, they're quick tempered, then all of a sudden they're like, oh, I'm gonna walk out of the job, I'm gonna quit. So to me, I think that emotion is an immediate response to how that person is feeling.
Feeling.
I think that they react emotionally
Mhm.
quickly based on how they're feeling. They let their feelings dictate how they're going
Yeah.
to respond or how they're going to react.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that's good too. That really is. And can I say this too?
Mhm.
Sometimes it depends on how you were brought up, which one
Mm.
takes precedent, right? Some households deal more in emotions versus feelings. Again, I don't know nothing about y'all, so let me talk about me, right? I can tell you, everybody probably in the comments can kind of deal with this too. Is listen, it depends on how you feel, which in regards of how you were raised. I was raised in the house again with, I had a big brother, and so dealing with my big brother, I couldn't show a lot of emotion, right? He'd be like, stop, I would say, I love you. He'd be like, duh, don't do that to me, So I couldn't show a lot of emotion. So as I got older, I didn't emote a lot of emotion, right? So my response, I was that guy that got mad and walked out the job just because you made me upset, and I go find me something else, dealing with my feelings instead of my emotions, in my insecurity.
Mm. Wow.
But so do you think that got cut off as you were growing up because it was you were feeling those things and you were trying to express it, and then you kind of got shut down? So do you think it kind of shut you down to where you started just to do things a little bit differently because of that?
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like when it changed the way I operated, until I began to understand truly who I was, and how to deal with my emotions, right? And I'll be very honest with you. When it comes to guys, most of us don't know how to deal with our emotions. Point blank. Period. If you came up in any kind of situation like I did, we just wasn't taught how to deal with it. And so what we did was just shy away from it. So the only emotion you got out of us was two things: either joy or happiness or anger. Those are only two that you were going to get. And so if I loved you, all I can say is that, I'm happy to be around you, instead of showing the emotion of love. You know what I mean?
I get that. So, guys, we want to invite you to jump in the chat, give us some feedback. We want to thank everybody who's given us comments tonight. Again, we have Pastor Chris McAllister with us, and we are discussing emotions and feelings. And so for the first one, we had job evaluation. Luis, we want to say thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really just appreciate you guys, and this is going to be a really awesome episode tonight.
So as far as a job, so for me as a female, because I know you brought up, a guy, but for me as a female, because I've had times on the job, not maybe just being critiqued, but certain situations that's happened on the job that have really made me angry. Like I am fuming, like my reaction would be like, okay, I really want to walk out the door. I really do. But at the same time, I don't let my feelings dictate how I'm going to respond or react. You know what I'm saying? So for me, and I don't know if it's because I'm a female or I'm analytical or I'm a female, whatever it is, but maybe females out there, you can kind of just help me out. Those of you who are tuning in, maybe you can help me out. But maybe we tend to think about it a little bit more logically before reacting. So I don't know. What do you think?
You know what? I would agree with that. I have seen a lot of ladies use a particular situation, especially at work. Ladies usually understand how to maneuver and navigate in the world that they have created, especially at work. They know who to talk to, and they know what stuff should sound like, right? They know if somebody actually has an attitude or not. As a guy, for me, I was oblivious, right? You can come in and give me all kinds of attitude, and I'd be like, I mean, I guess you're just having a bad day, when in fact you were doing it on purpose, right? So like, as a guy, for most men, not all men, but for most guys, we just don't know. We don't know, and that's a blessing and a curse. But emotion wise, I think guys deal with feelings, right? Because if you hurt a guy's feelings, we shut down immediately. Yeah, we shut down immediately if we hurt our feelings because we don't want you to get to our emotions.
That's
Wow.
deep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's deep
There's-
right there.
There's a transparency,
Yeah.
when you share and you show your emotions. Like, I'm not an emotional person like that, but if I cry in front of somebody, like, that's transparency. Like,
Yeah.
I may be embarrassed at first, I may be embarrassed after or whatever when I think about it, but that's a level of transparency. So I think that women do tend to be a little bit more emotional, but however, I do see that times are changing though. Times
Uh-huh.
are changing, and I do see, because I work in this public school system in an elementary school, but I do see the little boys cry a little bit more than the girls. So
Yeah.
times are changing. It's
you
different.
you are
Mhm.
absolutely right. You are totally right. Yeah.
So y'all want to move on to the next scenario that we have. So
Yeah.
for our scenario 2, we're going to get into depression. Do you think
Wow.
it is an emotion or feeling? So for some questions, we have, which one comes first? Do you think it's emotions or feelings? Are your emotions a result of your feelings? And I think that's good because Pastor Chris, you kind of went into that. So what are your thoughts on that?
So let's deal with the first one. Is depression an emotion or feeling? I'm going to go that depression is an emotion, right? Because depression is deeply rooted, right? Again, when you start talking feelings, I think feelings are more surface based, right? For the most part, emotions are deeper tied, and depression is an emotion. In my world, right? And so, yeah, I'm gonna go with that because it's
Wow.
that's so much. Yeah, depression is so much.
Wow.
Joe, what are your thoughts?
I think depression starts with a feeling. You're feeling sad, but I think sometimes that those feelings can magnify. They can really get so big, and sometimes so out of control. Sometimes I think we dwell on being so sad that now comes loneliness. Now you're starting to think about what situation you're in. So I do think it starts with a feeling, and then I think like your outward demonstration on that feeling, again, like I said before, is the emotional part, is the emotion.
And so for me, I do agree too. I have dealt with depression. And to me, it was very difficult to deal with it because as a believer, I was always taught that as a Christian, you could not be depressed. You could be oppressed, but you couldn't be depressed. And so for me, I struggled even with that simple fact. So for me, I think it is a feeling, and it can lead into those other emotions, like Joe said, the loneliness, the bitterness, the anger. You're not the confusion. You're confused. Why is this going on? Why am I feeling this way? Do I not have enough faith because I am depressed? Like, I went through all of that struggle and that angst, between the two, because a lot of people are just like, oh, well, you got the Lord and you believe in him and he's your savior. So what do you have to be depressed about? But in my mind, it can be a chemical reaction. I think there are a lot of things that are tied into it when we talk about depression.
Yeah. I have a question in regards to that. When we're talking depression, right? Do you guys feel that even in the feeling or emotions that depression can be put on you by others?
I do.
Or do you guys feel like it originates from self, right? Depression. Do you think it comes from the depths of you, or is it placed on you? I got a question. Yeah.
Yes. Hey, before I answer that, Pastor Chris, I want to go ahead and address what Mike has to say. He says, feeling leads to emotion, and sometimes emotion leads to depression. Thank you, Mike, for your comment. I do agree with that. In answering that question, I do believe that there is something called circumstantial depression. I think sometimes based on circumstances, you start to feel sad. You start to feel into these different moods and that. But I do sometimes think that we put ourselves there in certain situations, because I had a friend that told me one time, it's a decision, it's a choice. And I had to think about that, because I do have a history of being depressed or depression. And so I really and it stung at first when I heard it. I was like, what are you talking about? That's something that I can't control. But after I was thinking about that, I was like, you know what? I can choose to accept this situation. I can lay here and I can cry about it. I can lay here and be down about it, or I can do something about it and I can change it.
Yeah.
So for me, it was a mindset that I had to change. And so I believe that at times it is circumstantial, but then if you don't have the strength in your mind to really change or recondition your thinking, then I think that you're still going to be led by those feelings, of feeling sad, of being down when something does happen, when something bad happens, or something that is out of your control.
But I also think there are other things that go into that, because you have seasonal depression. When the weather tends to change, it starts to get dark earlier, that affects you. So for me, I had to learn all those other things about depression because I had never experienced it. So for me, just being transparent, I do take medication. I feel like for me, I need that. It's also balanced with my faith in Christ. Like to me, I don't think it's all or nothing. I think it can be a combination of things. And because there's such a stigma about depression and mental illness, sometimes we look at it and say, well, maybe they're just not strong enough. It's not that, because my faith is very strong in Christ, and I know I can't make it without him. So when it comes to depression, I think sometimes there is a combination. Sometimes you need medication for a short period of time. Maybe you just need it for a few months to kind of, get you acclimated and kind of get some things leveled out, because there's so much going on chemically in our brains. We have things in our family line. So there's so much when it comes to that. And I feel like because of COVID and everything that has happened, mental illness has become more of a discussion, and it's easier for us to talk about it and acknowledge it and not be ashamed of it. And I think for me, that's what I struggle with the most, was the shame, because I'm like, okay, he is my savior and he has redeemed me. So how can I feel depressed? Because that's what I was taught. So it's like, that is such confusion when all this other stuff is going on in your body. And then when you are depressed, you don't want to tell people about it. And the thing is when that happens, that's when you can get those suicidal thoughts. You can start to feel alone and feel hopeless. And so I love the fact that people are saying, hey, we understand what you're going through. We want to come beside you. We want to join you. And I'm gonna tell y'all this right now. I had a friend take his life a couple years ago. So suicide is very near and dear to my heart, because I have never experienced that kind of pain. So when it comes to depression, it's one of those topics that I totally understand what that person is going through, because I never thought I would experience something like that.
Wow. Thank you so much for sharing, Shemeka. I know I know that's was tough. Rhonda says, I think it can be both. It just depends on the relationship or friendship you have with the other. And then Mike says, dealing with depression is not one size fits all. Everyone's reason for depression isn't the same. And that's very true.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. Because even as a pastor, right, when you start talking depression, you wouldn't think that pastors deal with it, but you got to understand the pressure of pastoring and the pressure of dealing with individuals can put you into a state of depression, right? Because you're giving it all to others, but sometimes you feel like you're not receiving that reciprocity from the ones that you're pouring into. And that can also put you into a state of depression. So I'm right there with Mike. Listen, depression it's not a one fit all. It comes from all different variations. And again, once it gets into the emotion part of it is where I feel like it becomes a stronghold in your life. And so once it happened, it's hard to come out by yourself. Like, that's the one emotion I would say that you definitely need a hand in helping, somebody coming in and helping pulling you out of that, because it gets deep and that's a slippery slope.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, I've dealt with it as well. Thoughts of suicide and that, and I at one time was really
Mhm.
deep into depression, and so
Wow.
I didn't get help, I didn't. I probably should have, but think about the reason why we go to a counselor, why we see a
Right.
psychiatrist, why.
Right.
I think it's to help to recondition your mind, to help you deal with and learn how to deal with your feelings and your emotions. So
Yes.
really trying to get your feelings under control and then your emotions under control, because not everybody knows how to do that. So for me, I've learned that when I have that, when it starts to come on me, then I know what to do. I know how to react. I know what to say. I know what to think to help me get out of that. But I wasn't always like that.
Mhm.
Wow.
Mhm.
Wow.
Tiffany
And
had a
we want to thank Tiffany. She did have a
thank
comment.
you, Tiffany.
Thank you so much for joining us tonight. And Pastor Chris, I didn't mean to cut you off. What were you
No,
going
no, no,
to
you're good. I was gonna say, hey Tiff, how you doing?
say?
And I believe she had a
Yeah.
comment. I believe she had a
Yeah.
comment as well. She said, "I agree. Depression can be tough to battle," and
Oh
Yes.
and
yeah.
that is very true. Hey,
Mhm.
we want to go ahead and take a commercial break, and we can continue talking about depression when we get back. Um, those of you guys who are tuning in, we want you to stay. Stay tuned. We will be right back, and we will continue talking about this topic on Words versus Words with Friends podcast.
When you're rekindling a relationship, that's a restart. I really like the word rekindling too, because obviously it makes you think about a flame or ember that has gone out. And when you're rekindling it, you're kind of stirring the flame back again.
If
So
I'm going to rekindle, and I get it because the word rekindle is throwing you guys off. I get it. I get it. But I want that relationship to be reset, because I no longer want to bring up issues from the past.
am I both on this one too? I may be both on this one.
Wow.
So I think that if you're restarting a relationship, what you should do is build that foundation of friendship. So I think that when you restart the relationship or rekindle it, there are some things that you're going to do differently that you.
Hi, welcome back to Words versus Words with Friends podcast. That was a clip of our last episode, Reset versus Restart, with our very special guest, Tiffany Pascal. You can check out that full episode on Facebook at WvWWF or any major podcast platform. We have so many episodes in season 1 and so many episodes you can check out for season 2. Hey, we've been talking about emotion versus feelings, and we've been talking about scenario 2, depression. Is it an emotion or a feeling? Hey guys, if you're tuning in, we thank you so much for tuning in tonight. And we want to hear, what do you guys think? Do you think that depression is it a feeling or an emotion? We want to hear you can drop it right in the chat. We want to hear your perspective on this.
Yes, and we want to thank Pastor Chris McAllister with Life Changers Austin for being
Yo.
our very
Yes.
special guest tonight. We are so excited to have him. We have really been having some good discussions. So, Pastor Chris, you have any more thoughts as it goes into depression?
Yeah, again, I'm gonna go with, again, I know we kind of went sidebar there, but listen, I'm gonna go, depression is an emotion, not necessarily a feeling, because of how deep it is. So I'm going emotions on depression. Yeah.
Okay, well, I'm gonna stick with feelings because I do think that it is a feeling, like I said before, having to deal with it. It is that feeling, and you can feel it coming on. It can be circumstantial. There can be some things that start to come. And I know Pastor Chris was asking, do you think it could be situational, or do you think that people can kind of put that on you? Totally do agree. I do agree with that.
And Shemeka, I want to say, well, congratulations, because you finally agree with me. So I said feeling too. So we're on the same page on this one.
We did.
Whatever.
You're just by yourself, Pastor Chris. I'm
Yeah.
sorry. Okay, so which one comes first is the question. Emotions or feelings? Are emotions a result of feelings? What do you think, Pastor?
I'm gonna say, of course, I truly believe that feelings come first, and then you end up diving into the emotion. Just in my instance, as you begin, I gave the example earlier. I feel like most people react initially off how they feel, and then they deal with the emotion later. So I'm gonna go that feelings go first, and then emotions. And as emotions is a result of feelings, I'm gonna say no, because I can feel one way but have a totally different emotion about it later. If I felt the only reason I wouldn't say that is because if I felt it one way and then later I felt the same way about it, as I matured, then I could say yeah. But no, I'm gonna say they're totally two different things, and I'm gonna say that feelings and emotions are totally two different things. So yeah,
Wow.
you might like it,
That's
you
really
might not.
that's really interesting because you
Mhm.
said feelings come first, but with the depression, you didn't feel that feelings came first when it comes to
Right, but
depression.
yeah, so no, because depression, I said depression is a little bit different, right?
Mm,
Again, there's not one fits all in regards to
right,
that.
right.
So
Mm,
that would be the only. I think depression is one of the only ones that I
okay.
would probably uh change my answer.
Okay. Okay. That's good. That's really good. So
Yeah,
you're saying that your emotions could be totally different than
yeah,
your feelings like later on. Could you give an
absolutely.
example of that?
Okay, yeah. So again, so you can feel one way about a situation, and then that's the initial encounter with something. And
Mm,
then over time, over a week, whatever, again, leaving that job is when you deal with the real emotions you had for that moment, because in the time you didn't have time to deal with the emotion because you were dealing with the feeling, right?
mm,
So as you dealt with your feeling of anger, right? You got home. Now you're realizing that you left your job. You ain't got no more money coming in. Now you're dealing with the real emotion that you would have felt in that office, which was sadness. And being sad and
mm,
angry are two different things, right?
mm,
And two different reasons why you would react. Because if you react
mm,
out of anger, you're going to react different than you would react out of sadness. So,
mm. I see that as regret.
yeah,
I see that as
yeah,
you regret what you
because
did because guess what? You broke. You broke.
exactly. And
And so
usually
then I think
sadness comes with that.
yeah, hey, I could see that. I could totally see that. Yeah. But I
Mhm.
definitely think and then that is regret an emotion? Can regret be an emotion?
Oh yeah, I would say yeah, yeah. Regret would definitely be an emotion.
Mm,
Because emotion, you can. I think emotions will tie to your physical man at some point. You know what I
mm.
mean? And what I mean by that is, you could regret something so much it'll make you sick. You know what I mean?
Oh, yes.
Physically sick. So that's
Mm,
and depression is another one.
mm.
Anger is another one. Love is another one. So
Oh.
those are again intuitive with emotion. So
Mm.
Hmm. That's good.
That is really good. Yeah.
Mhm.
Let's go ahead and move on to the next one, scenario number 3. So we're talking about processing emotions and feelings. So we do have a
mm,
question. Tiffany says, Jolene, I see a lawyer gift in you. LOL.
Yep,
I
absolutely.
think so. I know how to
Mhm.
interrogate them children in the classroom. I've had years of
uh-huh.
experience with that. So I could spot somebody who's not telling the truth. So
Right.
okay. So question is, do women and men process emotions and feelings differently? Let's go ahead and stop right there before I move on to the next one. What do
Yeah.
you think from a
I,
guy's perspective?
from a guy's perspective, I'm definitely going to say yes, absolutely. Do women and men process emotions and feelings differently? Yes. Yes, we do. Now, again, you ladies have to come from the ladies' perspective, but for guys, most of the time when we process our emotions or feelings, either one, we process over time, right? I think ladies can process emotions and feelings a lot quicker than guys, right? That's why a guy can tell, y'all could have an argument or a discussion, and then 2 weeks later he'll come back and be like, you know what you said the other day, you were right, because he had to process the emotion that came with that. Women, and they can tell you if they right or wrong right there. You know what I mean? So yeah, guys and women, I feel like they process it totally different.
Oh, I can see that. Shemeka.
So for me, like I was saying earlier, I'm just having to learn to process those feelings more, because I know that we can look and say a lot of times women get emotional, but that's not always true. For me, I think it is, but that's something I'm working on, because I feel like if I can learn how to work through those feelings, then maybe my emotions might be a little bit different. They might be a little bit healthier if I can learn how to work through those feelings and not have that initial reaction of anger or being upset. So that's something I'm really like trying to work on for myself, because I've always considered myself an emotional person. I consider myself an empath. And so I pick up everybody else's feelings and emotions, and it's overwhelming. And so because of that, that's something that I like consciously have to work on because of my personality. I think sometimes if your personality is a little bit different, you might not have to focus on that as much, and it could be easier to process because your personality is just different. So for me, that's something I have struggled with because of that, and it's a lot when you walk into a room and you picking up everybody's feelings and emotions plus trying to process your own. That can lead to depression,
Right.
like those things can be tied in together. And so I think it just depends on the person.
So for me, I think it depends on the situation.
Okay.
I think it depends because I believe that experiences can cause a person's emotions to change. So a person maybe at one time may have been emotional. I think at one time in my life, I was an emotional person, but through life experiences and going through a lot of hard things really just made me tough. Can I have empathy? Yeah, I can. Do I have discernment? I do, as far as people and what they're facing and what they're feeling. I do. But at the same time, I don't live there. And I think that's what makes I think that's the fine line between feelings and emotions is where you live at most of your time. Because like I said, I'm not an emotional person, but I do have feelings, if that makes sense.
Makes real total sense.
That's good. And Mike says, I believe society dictates emotional levels of both genders. I totally agree with that, Mike. I was watching something that TD Jakes did about feelings and emotions. I'm actually going to go back and watch it again because it was really good. He said that we always focus on our IQ and how intelligent we are, but we need to be working on that emotional intelligence as well. So for me, that's something that spoke to me really deep. I'm like, I need to get my EQ up along with my IQ because they go hand in hand because they affect every relationship, friendship, co-workership, whatever kind of ship. It affects it all together, so those have to work together. So as we're getting more knowledge and wisdom, we also need to be asking the Lord to help us with our emotional IQ. Because I know that the Lord was Jesus wept. So he created emotions and feelings. And I think the reason why he talked about it so much in the word and told us how we should react and respond is because he made us. He knew that we were going to be emotional and we were going to have feelings. So he's trying to teach us how to process those.
The Bible says it this way. The Bible says that feelings are fickle, right? And when it goes into talking about the word of the feelings are fickle, which means you can feel one way one moment and then you can feel a totally different way the next moment, is the fact that understanding that they're necessary, but don't ever make any real decisions based off of how you feel, even sometimes in your emotions. So again, I told you, I feel like emotions and feelings are different, but where they are the same is that we should never make real important decisions off of either one, right? They're both important, but they're there to help guide you, but you can't make a decision at that moment off of the emotion or feeling that you're having at that point. Because what you need to do is make decisions off of the facts of the matter, right? Like Ms. Joeleen said earlier, the facts of the matter. And for, again, most people, we make decisions on how we feel in the moment. So how many times have people left a marriage, left a friendship, left a job, left a church, all because of one emotion or feeling at that particular time, at the moment that, whatever they felt. And again, for me, like you were just saying, that I remember that that sermon that Jakes did in regards to that. So listen, for me, like it's a wave of stuff, right? So I just wanted to put that out there.
Wow.
Yeah, that's good.
So going back to the question, so do men and women process emotions and feelings differently? And then do women tend to be in their emotions or feelings more compared to men?
Okay. All right. Let me because I know y'all waiting on that answer from me. Okay, so let's do it this way. I'm going to say yes, right? Not in the way that you think, right? So do women tend to be dealing their emotions or feelings more than men? And the answer to that is yes. But it's only because men have never been taught how to deal with their emotions or feelings. That will be the only difference for me. If we were taught, now this generation is a little bit different, right? But the generation, my generation and older, we as guys never were taught how to deal or how to process emotions, especially in front of women. So what we tend to do is we don't do it at all until it gets to the breaking point, right? So yeah, so the answer to that for me is yes, women are more emotional and deal with their feelings a lot more than men do.
So Tiffany says, right, men were made to feel weak for expressing emotion. So
Yes.
yeah, so how many times it's so true? Like men are supposed to be macho, even just
Right.
I think just overall in any culture, in more cultures than some,
Right.
but you know what? They're supposed to be tough. They're supposed to be, they're supposed to step up if something happens, they're supposed to be the protector. But you know what? If you let them see that spider on the floor though.
Yeah.
You see that
Yeah.
spider on the floor? Who's going to scream first? Who's going to
Hey,
scream? You know what I'm saying?
listen,
So sometimes you got some men that are more
listen,
emotional than women. I've
listen.
seen men that'll be like,
If a snake comes in and it's us three, I'm telling you right now, y'all on, okay? I love y'all to death, but if a snake is in the room, hey, listen, it's on y'all on that way. Like I don't deal with snakes.
no mice, no rodents, no snakes, no spiders.
No, none of
we
that.
got
Well,
it
I can
cool.
do spiders. I can do it depends on what kind of spider it is. But yeah, no, not no. I can do rats and stuff like that, but no, not a snake.
But
So,
you're supposed to be the defender. You're supposed to stick up there for your
That
woman,
sound.
man. She's supposed to be the one jumping on the table, not
Listen,
you.
I'm still trying to process my emotions. Okay, like so, we gonna jump on that table together. Okay, we go
absolutely.
find out who can do this or not.
But do you think, Pastor Chris, do you think that when men are processing things, do you think that pride or ego could be considered one of their feelings or emotions that comes out?
Oh yes, I think pride is now again. I think pride produces the ego. Okay. I think pride produces the ego because pride is something that's most of us deal with, not even just men or women. It's all of us. But for most men, pride produces an ego, right? So if we're too proud, the Bible says that God don't even like a proud look, right? And so when you start talking pride, man, pride becomes before a fall also, because that, and then that ego, and ego is when you start to
Wow.
treat people differently because of really your own insecurities.
Mhm.
That's all. Like for
Mm,
me, I just um so let me go back to, yes, is ego and pride and emotion or feeling?
mm.
I think that pride and ego are same as emotions,
Oh,
right?
wow.
Again,
Wow.
because they're deeply rooted into that individual. Like
Mm,
you can't bump yourself on a table and feel proud, or pride or an
mm,
ego, right? I think
Mhm.
that comes from within. You know what I mean?
mm,
And that it doesn't have to necessarily be based off of anybody around
mm,
you. I think pride and ego is a self manifested thing.
mm.
Hmm.
Internally.
Yeah.
It's internal. Oh,
That's
wow.
good.
Okay.
That's
Wow. I
good.
would have
Pastor
went with
Chris, you deep. You deep up in here.
I would have went, look, I would have went with it could be a feeling is what I would have
Okay.
went with. You
Mhm.
feeling you prideful,
Okay.
you got this ego, you got this, I think, like this arrogance about you. You know
Mm-hmm.
what I'm saying? So I think it's a way that you feel about yourself.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I think, but I guess I'm asking because I just feel like sometimes if I were to offend my spouse or my husband, who is a male, like sometimes I feel like if I hurt his feelings, then I hurt his ego, and his pride. I kind of look at it like that. It's
mm,
almost like if I were to hurt him, hurt his feelings, by something I said or did, it to me, I feel like it could
mm,
affect his pride and his ego, which you said is very deep.
Mm-hmm.
It's something deep inside of you. And so I think sometimes when we say certain things, we're just
mm,
not respectful, sometimes to men,
mm,
in the way that we say things. And I think they internalize that. And of course,
Mm-hmm.
we don't understand it because they don't know how to
mm,
express it. So, it's just that revolving, like just going around and around and around. So that's why I
mm,
was
Yeah.
asking that question, because I was just curious if that's something that comes out, and we just don't know how to interpret it or know exactly what it means. So
Gotcha.
And we have a
mhm.
question from Rhonda. She said, "How do you teach a man to deal with their emotions? What would you say?"
Mm.
Oh, wow. That's actually a really good
Mm,
question. Let me start off by saying this. Uh, for you to start dealing with emotions with men, the first thing we have to build is trust, right? The reason why men don't really deal with a whole lot of emotions is because we don't trust anybody with them.
Mhm.
Because anytime that most men have
mm,
give out true emotions, if we told you how we truly feel, like Joeleen, you said it earlier, is we're supposed to be one thing, but if I show you that I'm not that one thing, if I'm not that tough guy, if I'm not that strong man, then you will hold that against me in the times where you feel like I should be and I'm not. So the first thing we have to start doing is open up the line of trust where he feels like he can be open, and his openness dealing with his emotions won't be thrown back at him at any time, right? We like to give you information, and once we give you the information, we don't want to hear about it again, right?
Mhm.
wow.
For the most part. So that's how you first start off, and then
Mm,
the Bible says that a soft tongue will turn away wrath, right?
Mhm.
mm,
The only way you can come to a man is as soft as possible, right?
mm,
Most of us men, and as an African American, I come from a household that my mama was loud. I love your mama if you're watching, forgive me, but I'm gonna tell on you for a second. We were loud, and with being loud, you'll say some harsh stuff that will make you break down as a
mm,
young man. You'd be like, well, I ain't gonna say nothing
wow.
then, right?
Mm,
Mhm.
And so with that, especially coming from a black mother, a black woman, you're so entrenched with how they say stuff, right? And so
Mhm.
you'd be like, I don't even want to tell you how I feel, because I don't want you to take the kindness for weakness, or
mm,
take my weakness and use my weakness against me, right?
Wow. Wow.
And so the way you start again is open up that line of trust. That would
Mhm.
be the first thing you would have to do, and that would take some time too, right?
wow.
Give him the opportunity to speak, and let him say whatever he need to say, and you don't judge it.
Mhm.
That's good.
That's good. And one thing that I learned from like my experience too, and also from even just studying the word, the word says for the wives to respect their husbands,
Mm-hmm.
not love.
Right.
Right? Because it's easy for women to love. You know what I'm saying? That's not a problem. The problem is women respecting their husbands. So I think that if you respect them, then they're more willing to show you their or express their feelings to you. I think
Uh-huh.
it's when we are disrespectful that they tend to shut down or they tend to, become a certain way, and it's not because they don't know how to manage their feelings. It's because they didn't feel respected enough to share or feel comfortable enough to even share or express how
Right.
they were feeling.
Well, let me
Mhm.
say this also real quick. I'm gonna piggyback off of that.
Mm.
You said again in the word when it says that wives respect your husband. The reason why he told the wife to respect the husband is because men translate respect as love. If you respect what I say, and if I ask you to do something, you do it without giving me a whole lot of lip, then you love me. That's why with most men, you don't have to say you love them all the time. If you just do what they ask you to do, you can never say you love them, but they're going to feel loved because you respect them. So for most men, respect in our eyes from women is the form of love.
That's good.
Wow.
That's good. Thank you
You
for that.
dropping
That's
jewels
really
tonight.
Yeah.
good. That's really
You
good.
helping the
Yeah.
sisters out here. Appreciate that.
That's good. All right. So
Mhm.
let's go ahead. Let's go ahead and move on. We have another question. Does it change if it's boys or girls? Does it
Hmm.
change if it's boys or girls? Like, are those emotions or feelings different when it comes to boys and girls?
Um, that's going to be hard for me to answer because I've never been a little girl. But I've raised three beautiful young women and one handsome young guy,
Mhm.
and I'm definitely going to say for my household, yes, there's a difference, right?
Mhm.
Because when you start talking emotions with little girls and little boys, again, they can be going through the exact same thing. Let's talk puberty, shall we, real quick?
Mhm.
When
Yes.
you start dealing with children and puberty from versus a young lady versus a young guy, they could be dealing with the same thing as of
Mm.
what you call it, like bumps and all that good stuff, and
Oh, acne.
yeah, acne, and so they deal with it two different ways. I had a daughter who
Mhm.
literally broke down, just don't want to
Mm.
go to school
Oh, wow.
whatsoever,
Yeah.
and then I had a son. My son went through it and was cracking jokes about it, right? And so
Mhm.
what he used was his comedic aspect, even though because he understood it's not going anywhere it's gonna go
Right.
away on its own. And so
Mm.
he understood at that time, like, I'm just gonna joke about it until it go away. My daughter said,
Mm.
you're not gonna see me until it goes away. uh
Mhm.
Oh, wow.
so yeah,
Mhm.
I'm gonna say yeah,
Mm.
there's a
Yes.
difference.
So
Mhm.
processes are different. Yeah, and the way they process their minds are shaped differently or, just it's just different, with how they process certain situations, similar situations, but yet they
Uh-huh.
process it differently and they react to it very different.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I
Mhm.
see that.
Yeah.
So, also too, I work at a school, a public
Oh
school,
yeah,
elementary kids,
absolutely.
but I do notice that there is a difference, there is a shift, there is a change, just over the past several years or so, where um the girls cried more than the boys did, but now I see that boys are crying more
Mhm.
than girls are, and
Right.
that's what I've observed at school, so really they're seeing I think that they're seeing it somewhere or something's going on in their lives or their homes, that it's okay to show your
Yeah.
emotions, it's okay to show your feelings, it's okay to be emotional. For me,
Yeah.
I raised my voice, like, they were tough, and I'm gonna tell you this one thing. I felt so bad after. I was like, "Am I a bad parent?" Because I sure felt bad. Elijah was playing football in high school, and he fell, and he fell on his wrist, right? And I was like, you're fine." I was
Yeah.
like, "You're okay, it'll be alright." The next day, he was just like, "It really hurts." it swelled up so bad. And I was like, well, maybe I ought to take him into the doctor.
Yeah.
His wrist was broken in 2 places. But me, I'm like the mom, like, hey, you're a boy, you're tough. It's okay, you get over it. It's just just a little bump. It's all right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Mike says also it's been said that girls emotionally mature earlier than boys. That's good.
Yeah.
That's good.
That is so true. That is, you see that in school. Like girls are just more emotionally mature than boys. You know, there's certain words you can't say around a 7-year-old boy that he'll be laughing all day versus a girl. She'll be like, okay, get over it. You know what I mean? So
that's true. That's true. But I have seen my nieces though, because had them growing up and them being teenagers, and I'm like, I have 2 boys, so them growing up and stuff, and I see that girls, they're too emotional. Like I'll be like I want to treat them like I treat my boys. Oh, get over it. You're fine. Like, how you gonna deal with life and you're always crying, or you stubbed your toe and you're crying? Like, get over it. You know, I'm the tough one, so I'm like, oh, I don't know if I could deal with girls. Like I said, thank God. There's a reason why I did not have girls.
Yeah.
Rhonda says it is very true, and we thank you guys so much for tuning in, joining us tonight. Again, we have a special guest, Pastor Chris McAllister with Life Changers Austin. He is gracing us with his presence tonight. He's dropping gems out here for us sisters so that he can give us some tips on how men think and how they process those feelings and emotions, and how we should show the respect. Because when they give us that trust, that is very, very valuable. So I love that you said that, because that's good. That trust, that can be the deal breaker right there.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so we want you guys to stay tuned. We're going to go to a commercial break, but we are going to have some interview questions for Pastor Chris. So if you have some questions you want to ask him, you can go ahead and drop it in the chat, but we'll be right back after this commercial.
Then you can go to an old church, and then there's a lady sitting on the front row, and she might not even know all the words to the song, but she'll start out and say, Father, I stretch my hand, and the whole room will shift, because there's a difference between power and performance.
Hi, welcome back to Words versus Words with Friends podcast. That was a clip of Pastor Christopher McAllister, pastor of Life Changers Church in Austin, Texas. So thank you so much for being a guest on our show today.
Oh, no problem.
Hey, we have some questions for you.
Yeah.
So Life Changers Church, how did you come up with that name?
Oh, so Life Changers Church actually was given to me years before pastoring, when God called me to senior pastoralship before I ever became a pastor. And so when I was a youth pastor, we would say we were changing lives, starting with ourselves. So we just called ourselves Life Changers. And so that just really held on to me as when God moved us to Austin, Texas, and we were starting a ministry. Life Changers came back to me. I had kind of forgot about it, but it came back to me, and God had just literally put that on our hearts, me and my beautiful wife. And so we've been saying that for years, and just to see it start to come to fruition now here in the city of Austin is a blessing from God. So yeah, Life Changers Church, we're changing lives, starting with ourselves.
I love that. I love that. So when did you feel God's call on your life to be a pastor?
So I was early in my 20s, but he called me, but I ran. I'm gonna be honest with you. I was married and trying to go up the corporate ladder in corporate America, and make this money and all that good stuff. But the call got heavier and heavier, and so I just really yielded to God. Really around the age of 30, I was preaching. in different places during that time. But it was 30 years old when I really gave God that real yes and says, okay, God, I'll do exactly what you call me to do. And he began to open up the doors. And we have a saying here at Life Changers that if it's God's will, it's God's bill. And so he began to open up doors that only he could open, and our job was just to walk through them. So yes, ma'am, for a very long time is the answer to that question.
That's good. So for those who are watching, what denomination is Life Changers Church? So
actually we're non-denominational, right? And so for the people that's watching that don't know what that means, it means we are a collective of all denominations. So we have Baptist, Methodist, Church of God in Christ. We got some Catholics, and again, we're multicultural and all that good stuff. And so I tell people all the time, just come as you are, truly. Come as you are, and we're going to walk through the word of God to the best of our ability. And again, with the change in your life, God does the changing. The word does the changing, not us.
Yes. And what is your very favorite thing about being a pastor?
Oh man, is seeing the people. It's the light bulb for me. I don't consider myself a great preacher, but one thing I know I am called to do is pastor. And to be able to hug and love on people and walking them through the different variations of life, right? Again, me and my wife, that's what we hinge on, is just to really truly see the change in people, and not just in them, but in us, in myself and my wife, because people change you too. When you get to go through stuff that you didn't even really have to experience, but you watch other people experience. So it's just being able to be there with the people as they begin to walk this Christian life out.
That's good. So what events do you have coming up that you want to let everybody know about?
Oh man, listen, here at Life Changers, we have our October, I want to say it right, our autumn kickback on October the 29th at 6 p.m. Listen, it is a community event. It is free to everybody that's in the surrounding Austin area. Listen, we're having gang foods, face painting, and fellowship. And again, when I say food, we're gonna have some really, really good food. So come out, bring your family, bring us a good sweet tooth. We're gonna do all of that good stuff right here at our main location at 6 p.m. on October the 29th. So invite your friends, invite your family, even invite your haters, guys.
That's good. Where can everybody follow you?
Oh, listen, now we're on all the social media platforms, guys. We're on Facebook, Instagram, so you can catch us on our Facebook page. You can catch me, my personal page at Chris McAllister, or on IG, or at Chris McAllister _. But then you have our Facebook page for the actual churches at LCC Austin. The LCC Austin is for our Facebook and our Instagram. But also don't forget to go to YouTube and hit us up on YouTube at Life Changers space Austin. And then again, you can go to our website at lifechangersaustin.com. Listen, I want to see you follow, like, and share all our stuff. And don't forget to hit us up on our TikTok at Life Changers Church Austin. TikTok is pretty brand new for us, but we've been getting a lot of hits on that bad boy.
And I know a lot of people may recognize you, may recognize your voice, even your tagline when you came in. So let us know what that is all about.
Yeah, you know what? Listen, I had the opportunity when we got to Austin, Texas, to partner with one of my best friends in the world. We did, again, the Next 15 podcast. Listen, guys, God got something up for y'all. So if the ones that are missing the Next 15, listen, stay tuned. That's all I'm going to say. Stay tuned. Stay tuned. But I missed the Next 15. And Pastor Trey, if you're listening, we love you, bro.
Yes. Yeah, and you can check out those episodes. There's a lot of episodes. I mean, you guys were doing it for several years.
Yeah, man.
Go back to Next 15 podcast, on Facebook. So the Next 15, and also the website, next15podcast.com. So yeah, there's, so many good topics. Should a woman approach a man?
Oh yeah, that was a good one.
Favorite ones.
That was a good one. Oh my goodness, we had so much fun, but we learned so much also. Again, it wasn't just about having a good time, even though we did have a good time, but it was always so informational, so informative. So I respect all our guests that we had on the Next 15 and all that good stuff and everything that we learned.
Definitely can definitely apply it to your life. It's applicable to what we face every day. So, hey, could you tell us about if people want to go to your church services? Could you tell us when do you have service?
Yeah, listen, Sunday mornings at 10:30 a.m. guys, here in the great city of Austin, Texas, 7952 Anderson Square, Austin, Texas, 78757. Listen, we would love to see you in the building. Again, we start on time and then we out of there by noon because the Cowboys generally play. So or we trying to do better at it because of the Cowboys. But yeah, come see us. And then again, if you can't be in the building, stay tuned into our social media platforms where we broadcast live every Sunday morning at 10:30 a.m.
And then other than watching football games, what else do you like to do? I hear you like to do something else on the TV there.
I'm a video gamer. I like to play video games. Pray for me. As I get older, I don't do it as much as I would like to, but yeah, I like to video game. Our teens in the church, I'm always trying to put up a Madden tournament so I can let them boys and girls know that I'm still a boss. So there you go.
I gotta hook you up with my son. He does the virtual reality glasses and everything. Gotta hook you up with that. So he's into technology. So
I'm gonna be too dizzy for that. I'm sorry. My equilibrium ain't there like it used to be.
Hey, we thank you so much, Pastor Chris, for being our guest. I truly enjoyed it. Did you have any last comments, any last thing that you want to say?
Yeah, absolutely. Listen, guys, at the end of the day, when you're talking your emotions versus your feelings, don't let them dictate your attitude, either one, right? Because again, they are fickle. And don't make any decisions in regards to your emotions or feelings, but use them to the best of your ability. Yeah.
Very well said. Thank you, Shemeka.
Good. So final comments. I agree with you, Pastor Chris. I am diligently working on processing my feelings and those emotions so I don't react. This was an awesome episode. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. We appreciate you so much for accepting our invitation.
Yeah.
You can follow me on Instagram at Mika Lives. You can also follow me on Facebook, Shemeka Montgomery.
And my last comment. So, I mean, look, I truly believe that God wants us to be whole in all, well-rounded in our emotions, physically, financially, spiritually, well-rounded. And so if we are weak in our emotions or our feelings, then there are certain things that we can do to help develop that. But I believe that God is our source of strength and he will help us in those areas that we're weak in. So you can follow me on Facebook and Instagram at Joeleen Vasquez. And also you can follow Words versus Words with Friends podcast on Instagram at WvWWF podcast and also on Facebook at WvWWF. You can also check out our past episodes on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spreaker, or wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. So join us on Fridays. We'll be here again next Friday at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. And we want you guys to know we thank you so much for tuning in. You make our podcast so much better. And I'm telling you, we could not do it without you. So we thank you so much. And we want you to know, we want you to remember that it is more than a discussion. It is a debate. And we will check you out next week. You've been watching Words versus Words with Friends podcast, brought to you by Next 15 Podcast Productions. If you would like to support the podcast, go to next15podcast.com and click the Buy Me Coffee tab, where we will receive your donations of any size. Thank you in advance and for watching the podcast. We will see you next week.